All right, welcome back to my second submission to CGC. The first one is already out in 2 parts. Have a look at that if you haven't already. It's really interesting. Gives you a bit of background into some of the comments I'll likely make about my outcome. The second one was actually at CGC at the time that the first one came back. So all of the issues that I found in the first submission with a lot of the finger bends and indents and other little marks that I left on my comics, I couldn't really go back and review the second submission to see if I'd done any better. I had better expectations, it's another lot. It's another lot of 25 books. So I was hoping at least that I'd improve naturally. I guess we'll find out together. So once again, it was another lot of 25 books. We'll split this into 2 videos. So there'll be 12 in this one and 30 in the next. Because I've already received them, moved most of them on and sold them, a lot of this will be a retrospective where I will show the CGC slabs here. However, I do have a couple that I've kept, so I'll be able to show the actuals there. So without any further ado, let's get stuck into it. The first one is Amazing Spider-Man 153. It was initially a 9.8 Halo rated comic. I bought it off eBay. I paid $141. The pictures were not that great. So when it arrived, my first thought was there's no way this is 9.8 with those ticks. But again, I bought it at a price where if it actually came back as a 9.6 CGC, it would at least be a break-even situation. I worked it and resubmitted it, and I was hopeful of at least getting my money back as a 9.6. But as you can see, the CGC graders disagreed and gave me 9.4. The only comment on the grading notes was spine stress lines. So they were there, I get it. Still maybe a bit harsh. Moving on. The next comic is Amazing Spider-Man 298. McFarlane's first work on Amazing Spider-Man. My all-time favorite comic. It reinvigorated my love of comics back in the 80s. I love his art. It inspired me. It was just an amazing book to pick up off the bookshelf, the newsstand. This is not my copy. My copy actually was an overstock copy I found in a little comic shop. It had pen mark on it, so disappointing. It's up in my collection. That's fine. This one I actually bought from a comic market, and I got a really good price for it. It only cost me $55. I thought it looked really good. I thought after a cleaner press, it would come somewhere in the low 9s, in the near mint range. But near the bottom staple, it had these little creases that went from the staple across into the Spider-Man bar. And I put a lot of work into this. I worked it to try and reduce them as much as possible. There was no real other significant issue except there were a bindery on the back book on the top of the spine. I worked a lot on it. I love this book. I wanted to give it my best. I got it ready for submission. I then got the submission ready to go CGC, and I changed my mind. It was supposed to go in the first submission. I pulled it out and put it into the second because I wanted to work on it some more. So I got it to the point where I thought it would get a 9.2 because of those little creases that were there. I thought they would just push it down. I was hopeful of a 9.4. But I didn't dare dream. Again, I love this book, so anything in the near mint would be fantastic. Came out from CGC, and I was just blown away. I'm still stoked. It's been weeks, months since it came back. To have this book in 9.8 is amazing. And here it is. So I've covered the grade, but I already did the retrospective. So as you can see, that is my copy of Amazing Spider-Man 298. I can't be happier about that. So that's just sitting on the PC now. That will go to my kids. All right, so moving on to the next, which is Amazing Spider-Man 301, another classic McFarlane cover. I picked this one up off eBay. And I don't know how, but I missed the fact that it had a couple of creases on the back cover. And you know, with these copies of ASM, the back cover is critical. It's black. Anything shows up on the back. The front's going to look amazing. The backs are the risk. I don't know how I missed it. I had two little creases near the left side of the edge. I paid $71, so I think I overpaid a little bit for it. I worked on it, got the rest of it really good, but there's just nothing I can do about the creases. It was a newsstand edition, so you know, a little bit of extra value at that. I thought it would be somewhere in the 8 to 8.5 range, and CGC had a look at it, and they agreed. They gave me 8.5, which was amazing. Yeah, they basically quoted exactly the issue, multiple creases on the left top of the back cover. And I think that's spot on. There's simply nothing to do about it. I should have looked closer. I don't know how I missed it. It must have been late at night. So moving on to Fantastic Four number 361. Just a nice comic. This particular cover had overspray paint on it, which you can probably see in the picture. Again, it's a retrospective. I can't see this one. So the overspray shouldn't count against the grade, so it was a bit of a test to see. So I submitted this and worked it. It only cost me $8 and then submission fees. CGC had a look at it and they said 9.4. So let's have a look at the grader notes. Stress lines on the spine, and this is a weird one. Staple is bent on the bottom staple. So yeah, sure, there's a bend on it, but I mean, that's not really something that's done. It would have been out of manufacturing. So anyway, that's not something I was going to argue with them about. So moving on. The next book, very familiar to you, is Incredible Hulk number 340, another McFarlane classic cover, obviously, the Wolverine. Great cover, great book. Picked this up off eBay auction. I paid $191, so it was a fair bit, but I could see it was in decent condition. It had a couple of color breaking ticks on the back with some small bit of staple where there wasn't much else. I probably should have pressed it, I think, another time or two as I submitted it, but again, a bit early, rushing things a bit, and I really should have taken my time. The book deserved my respect more than that. I submitted it, and I was expecting somewhere in the 9.4 range, around that, and CGC had a good look at it and said 9.4. So they agreed, and the only real issue that they quoted in the grader notes were spine stress lines, which is, I think that's spot on, completely fair. Might have been able to squeeze a 9.6 out, maybe not. Moving on, was Robocop number 1 from March 1990. So Robocop, great movie. If you're a bit older like me, you'd be very familiar with the genre and the series of movies. This was a really nice copy. I picked it from an eBay seller I've bought from before. It was really good. The back of it had this thing where it had bled through. It had a sort of this orange on the inside of the cover. It bled through the back. I tried to reduce it, tried to clean it and pressed it. I tried to whiten it, tried a bit of hop, tried a few of these bits and pieces. I thought, because there's nothing you do about it. It's basically color bleed. It was non-reducible. It's not really anything you can do about it. I thought it would just be completely ignored from a grading perspective. So I thought it was going to come back as 9.8. CGC had a look at it. 9.0. This was a big surprise. And the grading notes are foxing on the back cover. It is not foxing. Unfortunately, the book is not a sufficiently high value for me to then think, oh, I'll just challenge it and get it to resubmit. So I just went with it, and it's now, it is what it is. Disappointing. But nothing I did for a change. So moving on, the next book is Spawn number 1. Love this book. The good thing about this copy is that it's actually my personal copy. I bought this off the newsstands in Melbourne back in 1992. Little comic shop, hole in the wall called Minotaur Comics back then, and now it's pop culture. They're a lot bigger. It stayed in my collection. Somehow survived in relatively good condition. I thought it had a couple of ticks visible on the front with a slight color break on the top right corner in a certain line. It was a weird bend. I couldn't quite get it right. was expecting 9.4. So I sent it to CGC, more than happy to get 9.4 for this. And CGC had a look at it and said, 9.8. I'm stoked. Again, stoked. Not quite at the same level as the ASM 298 stoked. But again, so this is my personal copy of Spawn #1 in a 9.8. Very one that I bought 33 years ago. So really happy to have that come back as a 9.8 and go into my personal collection. And that'll sit right next to my Spider-Man 298. So some good results there. Really good results. So next book, Spawn #6 Newsstand Edition. I bought this from a Facebook seller. I thought it had a bit of a colour rub on the back and a tiny colour breaking crease on the top middle or the back cover. And I worked out most of the rest of the issues. I cleaned it and pressed it and got it to a pretty good state. And I thought it would come in with somewhere between 9 to 9.6, depending on how that colour rub was judged. Sent it to CGC and they said 9.0. Now, the grading notes say stress lines on the spine. Yep, we mentioned those. Finger creases top of cover. I'm not sure about that. So I've either missed something, put something in, or they've just found something I missed, and that's fine. So it was only cost me $13. I should have mentioned that. So disappointed to get a better grade, but good experiment. Let's move on to Spawn Batman, book 9. So this is another PC book. It was one that I had 2 copies of it, so one of them must have been unread. So I had a look at it. It did have a slight tick on the back corner on the top right, near the top of the spine. I thought that might hold it back. I thought it might come back as a 9 to 9.2 because it was a significant sort of mark. CGC had a look at it and it was otherwise quite nice. And they said it is a 9.6. The graded notes are, strangely, wear on all corners. I'm happy with a 9.6. Don't get me wrong. So that was another decent outcome. Moving on to book 10. Okay, this was an interesting one. So we had Action Comics number 683. I bought this one off a seller on eBay, a good seller I know. It came back and it just looked new. Probably unread, sharp corners, beautiful, no issues in front, like no ticks, nothing. I could not find a fault. Is a newsstand edition, so it has a fair bit of value in a 6.8 in relative terms. However, I opened up the book to press it, and the back page, not the cover, the last page in the book had a tear in it. I don't know if it tore as I opened the back cover because I don't think the book had been opened. And it otherwise looked like someone just put their thumb through it. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. I didn't know how that was going to get graded. It was interesting because the book was otherwise immaculate. Nothing I could do. I decided to press on and see how the judge, if it was the front cover, it would come back incredibly graded down, massive rip like that. But, I don't know, VG fine. I don't know. I wouldn't want it. So yeah, I submitted to CGC expecting anywhere between 8 to a 9.8. And they had a look at it and they said it was a 9.8. So apparently you're going to have a big thumb-sized tear in the back page. No grade issues. Maybe it got missed. Maybe it flattened out nicely in the press and they just flicked through it because otherwise the book was immaculate. So I get it. All right, moving on to book 11. Punisher War General number 7 Newsstand Edition. I paid $7 for this from a seller on eBay. On Facebook. Really solid copy. Really, it had some edge wear along the spine, along the edge. Basically, where when it gets shipped in a box, it just rubs a little bit and it wears that off. Should not get judged against the grade. So this was definitely a way to test that. It barely needed a press. It was beautiful. Gave it a quick clean and press. Came out looking great. Submitted to CGC and they said 1.8. Great outcome again. So really happy with that. It's a beautiful book. It's got, from memory, it's got a Wolverine cover. Again, I'm not looking at these. It's just a placeholder here. So really, really happy to get that book in a 9.8. So moving on to book 12 was Secret Wars #2, Newsstand Edition. Same seller on Facebook, so it came in the same lot. Only cost me $14, twice as much as the previous Punisher one. I had a few ticks and a bit of chipping on the back cover on the edge. I was curious to see how that would get graded, and I was expecting anywhere from a 9 to a 9.2. Sent to CGC, and they pretty much agreed with me. The grading notes on this one for the 9.2 were spine stress lines. That's a lot of spine stress lines to take it down to a 9.2, so maybe a lazy grading, but otherwise I think it's a fair grade. All right, so that concludes part 1. A good 12 books. On the screen will be the total profit or loss to date. It should be in profit, especially with the Amazing Spider-Man 298 that came back. Pretty exciting. So the next part will be the next 13 books, and I'll release that in about a week. It'll be 2 seconds for me. It could be 2 seconds for you if you're watching it back. Otherwise, see you then. Thanks for watching. Take care.